Before we start episode 5, we have our very first action alert. Action alert. Action alert. The moment we have been waiting for is here. Registration is open for the New Hanover County GOP 2023 County Convention. Just slide down the page here, click here to register online. Remember, you will be charged $20 if you register at the door instead of $10 online. The page also has important facts about the registration process and how it relates to being selected as a delegate to the county convention. You can scroll down and find out all that information. But the main thing is to come back up and click right here to start the process of registering online. I'm going to walk you through the whole thing. Okay, if you're a registered Republican, you should be able to enter your name on this page, and your registration information should come up. Just click on your registration information, click the Register Now button, and you will be brought to this page. Now just enter your email, phone, employer, and occupation information, and then proceed to the payment page. Here you will enter your credit card information. If you try to submit without putting your zip code in, it will prompt you. Put that in, hit submit, and you're done. You have officially registered for the 2023 GOP County Convention. You will receive a notification on your phone. Open up that email. It's going to look like this, and it will have your confirmation code and all the information necessary to attend. Now, if you want to be a real hero, come back to this confirmation page, grab the top of the page in a screenshot. Just above your confirmation number, which is information that is private to you. You want to protect your identity and your information. And then grab that screenshot and send it in an email to thefederalistpress at proton.me. I'm using a Mac OS here. It probably looks different on Windows. The reason we want to do this, guys, is because we need 300 America First Patriots to show up on the 21st, and we want to keep track of the running total. Now, when you get to your email, all you have to do is put AFS into the subject line. That's for America First Slate. That'll go straight to me, and it'll help me track where we are in our goal of getting 300 Patriots to show up on the 21st. And lest I forget, here is the web address you're going to need to go to fill that form out and register for the county convention. I'm going to put the link in the description. You can click it there, or you can pause the button and copy it down now. And now your action items. 1. Register immediately. Let me know about it by emailing me at the Federalist Press, and heck, go crazy if you want. Snap a pic of your registration, post it online, social media, and hashtag it with AFS for the America First Slate. 2. Show up at the GOP tomorrow night at 6 p.m. to meet your America First Slate. 3. Come to the March for Life Saturday at Longleaf Park. It's going to be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And now, episode 5. Welcome to episode 5 of the NHCA team. That's the New Hanover County Action Team. My name is Ashley Strand. I'm your host. Today we have with us David Perry. David is the chair of the Republican Liberty Caucus in New Hanover County. He is also the head of One Voice for the Voiceless, a pro-life abolitionist organization in New Hanover County. David is here to discuss today the resolution on abortion that he plans to bring to the county convention on March 21st. David?
Hey, good evening, Ashley.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here again.
Oh, well, the pleasure is mine.
I say again, this is your first time on the NHCA team, but this all started with our virtual vigil for the voiceless, which was, I thought, a great pro-life event.
Right, and I thought it was excellent. And we began our efforts like we should always begin our efforts. Before we start making our own machinations, just starting out with prayer and knowing that it's going to be God and His Holy Spirit that are going to be the real power at work here. We can be His vessels, but ultimately, it's not because of anything that we bring to the table. It's because of our Lord is great.
Amen. And I think the other thing is I feel like we planted a seed there, and by starting the right way, as you say, it's borne some fruit already. Just before we jump into this discussion, I want to bring attention to some pro-life events that are happening this week. So we're recording this Monday. It'll be airing on Wednesday. Tomorrow, there's a group they're an informal group who are calling themselves Ambassadors for Life. They'll be led actually by our friend Jody Kemp, whose extraordinary career in the service of life we detailed in the virtual vigil. They'll be bringing a pro-life petition up to the General Assembly tomorrow morning here in Raleigh. And after we record this, hopefully I'll get an after-action report from them, and I'll be able to report on that. And then, of course, this Saturday, the 25th, in Longleaf Park in Wilmington, from 10 a.m. to 2 a.m., we're going to have the March for Life. And I believe Bev Jolly is the coordinator for that. And it's Wilmington for Life is the organization that's putting that on. And I assume you'll be there, yes?
I will definitely be there. I think it might be some person named Mary who's actually running it. But
is that right? Okay, well,
yeah.
I'll correct that.
But you have the right email address. That's so. If you got questions, that's who you want to email.
Yeah.
So,
no, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's we want everybody to show up in the area. I hope it's a big event. I mean, a lot of these events, like what the Kemps are doing, they're great, but they're all the way up in Raleigh. People have to work, so it's not necessarily easy for everybody to get up there and do this. But this is a Saturday morning, starting at 10 and going on, and this is something that you can come down with, and we need to gather together, as one, and with one voice, and make plans and do what we need to in order to, really cut through into victory. We are so close with victory because of that Roe v. Wade has been overturned, but we're so far away at the same time. So it's time for us to unite, and this is a great opportunity on Saturday morning at 10 at Longleaf Park to, just fellowship and know that you're not alone.
That's it. So, that's so important. And I was going to pick up on that if you didn't say it. It's so important to get the validation of having people on your side, believing the same thing you do, and not having shame and fear about having an opinion that you worry may be unpopular. It's probably a lot more popular than you think, and you don't hold it for its popularity in the first place. But it's good to get the encouragement of fellowship, as you say. I'm really glad, David, that you're emphasizing the spiritual aspects of all this, because I didn't have any of that in my question. So I appreciate that. Now, you're here today to discuss the resolution you're putting forward at the county convention on the 21st. Before we dive into that, have you had any reactions to the vigil since we did it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the people I spoke to, I mean, I don't know if our audience was as big as we would have liked, but we kind of did it very quickly. We didn't have a lot of time to market it. So, I mean, we had some people come, but I think the people who did view it thought it was excellent. And we had a lot of nice contributions from a lot of different people. And I think that is a good start.
Let me ask you: have you had success since then in connecting with other pro-life groups?
And a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Well, let's dive into the basics of your resolution. Now, as I said earlier, I will have done a reading of this already as a preface to our little talk here. But let's just go over the basics of what you resolve. One is that we need a law banning abortion now, and that we need the General Assembly and the governor to get on board with it. But what's interesting about your resolution is that it's very practical rather than being aspirational, because all of the other resolutions are downstream of the assumption that right now is maybe not the time that that's going to work out. So if that doesn't work out, we're resolving that we need to select more pro-life candidates, that we need to commit to interim or incremental partial bans, but coupled with promises for more, and that the GOP needs to censure candidates and office holders who don't hold to that policy. Is that about the shape of it?
Yeah, I mean, this is not, there's a lot of issues, and people have varying opinions, and we always like to say in the Republican Party, we're a big tent, and to some extent, that's true. We shouldn't be arguing over minute things, but this is life and death.
Mm-hmm.
These are innocent children. This is not something we should be having, or it's okay to agree to disagree. No, this is a fundamental issue. It so disappoints me. They started the new a session up there in the last month or so up in Raleigh. You know, we've been waiting for this moment since Roe v. Wade to be overturned for 50 years. You would think the first thing out of a Republican-led General Assembly is let's get on to tackling abortion. And it's not even, now we're talking about Medicaid expansion and a whole bunch of other things that I'm not saying aren't important, but compared to life, they're very unimportant.
Mm. Yeah, well, and I think one of the things that's often observed too is that when you allow great evils to happen and treat them as normal, that there are many other lesser evils that are downstream of it, because people feel if the greatest taboo is broken, what all the other ones matter for?
Exactly. So I think that what is paramount here is that we and the people have asked me, why this resolution? It's not going to do anything, right? I mean, it's not going to, you know, change the law. We can't, just because we have a resolution doesn't force the people that are the Republicans in the General Assembly to all of a sudden vote for an abolitionist bill. Of course, it doesn't, but it does tell them in very clear terms that we're going to hold you accountable from now on. Maybe we'll give you a pass right now for what you've done prior, but what we're not going to do is just let you continue down this road.
Yeah, so it seems to me there's two very interesting, and I'm glad you said that you got some pushback on this. You know, don't we run into this all the time where people say, well, there's nothing we can do? It's such a defeatist attitude, and what's it got to do with doing the right thing anyway? I mean, certainly as Christians, we understand the value of a principled defeat. I mean, if that isn't the message of the cross, I don't know what is. But so you've honed in on the two interesting features of this resolution. One is that yes, it's not just this pie in the sky thing of like this is what we want and we're going to push for it whether we have the votes or not. It's actually designed to put pressure on people who are trying to compromise with the left and trying to sort of please both sides. But the most interesting part, and we can talk about that, but the most interesting part to me about it is the third resolution, excuse me, the fourth resolution, uh, because where you say we're going to commit to measures like the heartbeat bill that maybe aren't absolute, they're not abolitionist bills, because in the interim, that will save lives. But then, joined with that, uh, when we support those bills, we also have to say this is only part of the deal. This is a stepping stone to full abolition. So, to me, that seems to be designed to diffuse this debate within the pro life community between the absolute abolitionists and the incrementalists. Um, I think it's brilliant, but have you tried it out on anyone? Has it worked?
Yeah, I mean, so far, I think that at least they're open to the idea that what we're asking for our legislatures to do is not only vote for a heartbeat bill and silently do it, but to be bold and say, you know what, and get on the media and say, I was proud to vote for this thing as an interim step, but I'm really pro-life. I really believe life begins at conception. So this is just one stop along the way. Um, and I think that's both satisfying to some of the abolitionist groups who are, oh, no, 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 we can't have that. Well, yeah, ultimately we don't want that. And if somebody just wants to like vote and not say that they're going all the way, if they're not going for conception, they need to be labeled for removal, and that's primary. election.
So having spoken to, let's say, abolitionists specifically, how did how because I in my own experience, I remember when we were putting the vigil together, there was a guy who was going to do the voiceover for us for the little informational loop we had there, um, but he didn't feel comfortable doing it because he didn't quite agree with our wording. Um, so I know that's something that you're having to diffuse. Have you run this by very strict abolitionists and said, and how are they, how if so, how have they reacted to it?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything back, to be honest with you. I haven't heard anything negative or positive. So I'm hoping that this will be the key, and that it's a good a good not compromise is a dirty word sometimes, but it's a good uh, wording that addresses both concerns,
Yes.
both that uh, you're or we can't get it all done now, so let's just do nothing, or well, if we just do this, then that means that's where we're going to stop. And the answer is no, it's not where we're going to stop. So, and we need to be very clear about that. So, but right now we just, I mean, I understand the practicalities. I mean, you would think if every even right now, even if every Republican at the General Assembly, we almost have a supermajority, even if every single one of them were staunchly pro-life, well, we got Cooper to the end of 2024, so he's not going to sign that. So we're not going to get that, until we get a new governor. But if maybe, but if enough pressure is laid on, maybe we do get a heartbeat bill or something like that. If enough pressure will be put on, but you know, I'm, I think that that's a good move. And also, what it does is the Republicans who don't vote for the heartbeat bill, the ones who want to leave abortion open for the first trimester, or legal, or leave it the way it is, legal for the first 20 weeks, like Ted Davis. Um, if they don't vote for it, that's a mark against them.
That's such an important point, and what's so smart about this resolution is that through and through, it's about putting pressure to try and get real defenders of life into office. And of course, all of that rolls into what we're trying to do at the convention on the 21st, which is to elect the America First slate. And I reached out to them before the broadcast, and they're absolutely going to be supporting your resolution.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. So you were able to talk to some of the other folks that were. I had talked to Diane Zawicki, and was very positive about it, but I hadn't talked to the other members of the slate yet. So that's awesome news.
Yeah, I spoke to Diane as well. I hadn't spoken to the others about it, but I asked specifically, you know, what the slate's position was, and her response was, of course, we support his resolution.
Awesome.
So that's very encouraging, and I think it gives voters a clear choice. And in the light of that, I think this resolution really puts a lot of pressure on, because now you have a situation where, okay, we're going to elect people who aren't going to select people who are squishy on abortion. Then we're going to push for legislation that is going to identify the squishes that are currently there in the legislature. And then we're going to create a situation with the censures where we create, a negative campaign ad for everyone who's going to run in 2024 saying, hey, you were censured by the GOP. I think a lot of people don't take the censure seriously because Stephanie Craybill was censured, and she famously had sort of contempt for it. She said, "Well, I'm in office till 2024, and I don't really care."
Yeah, well, come 2024, I'm sure somebody might use it against her if she
I
decides
don't
to run as
think
a.
she'll have much success as a Republican candidate. She may well run again as a Democrat and win in a landslide, but that's that's a different issue. So I think it's really smart in all the pressure it creates.
I mean, this is what we have. The trouble is we have to create these opportunities. I mean, in some ways, for years, these people could be masquerading around saying, I'm, yeah, I'm a Republican, I'm pro-life, and they didn't have to get into the specifics about it because they could just say, I'm very, very pro-life. I believe in the sanctity of life, and just leave it at that. Just say, well, there's only so much we can do because of Roe v. Wade, which might have been legitimate before last June, but is no longer legitimate. So in the election last year, we saw it become a major issue, and now these candidates are General Assembly candidates like Michael Lee um, and Ted Davis, and even with John Hinnant, they were asked about this and they couldn't avoid the question, in which because what they want to do is our politicians, especially the ones who tend to be more swamp orientated, is they don't want to take a public position on this, that, or the other thing unless they absolutely have to, because then they're on the record.
Yep.
Then if they vote against it, or if they're given some kind of a scratch on the back to vote against something that they were previously for, now all of a sudden they have to answer to the voters. So
It's so interesting you should say that, David, because in the last episode, I was speaking with Gail Major and Mike Korn and Patricia Collick, and one of the things they talked about was the habits that people have. And when you say it that way, it makes me think that in a way, we have to retrain politicians in their habits, because you framed it in terms of the excuse from above has been removed. Roe v. Wade has been overturned. It's now on the states. Now they can't avoid the question, right? So now the ball is in our court to put the pressure from beneath to keep asking that question, to keep exposing the people who are soft on this issue.
and the thing that's so frustrating, Ashley, is that this is this isn't just like we're a pro-life segment of the Republican Party. I mean, this is actually part of our state Republican Party platform.
Expand
It's
on
a,
that.
it's Article 4 regarding the sanctity of life. It's in our state platform, been there for years. And in a nutshell, the very first sentence, I mean, the very first part says that that our government has a responsibility to protect innocent life from conception until natural death. Not from the first trimester to natural death or 20 weeks to natural death, but from conception. And so this is what we supposedly believe, but our politicians up in Raleigh, a lot of them are just ignoring it. And so,
that's my point about the habits. Is that I think a lot of politicians, they learn the game, they learn how to survive, and then their instincts, so to speak, become based on that habit. But I think, if we make the example where there's a new standard where politicians aren't going to get rewarded for not saying anything too specific, but they're going to be rewarded for saying something specific and something clear and something principled and then sticking to it. Once we flip the what do you call it? Once we flip the carrots and sticks of the incentive setup, then I think a lot of the work will be done for us in the future. That's what I think is so important about the seeds you're planting with this type of work.
That's the important thing. I think a new slate can do. I think it can, not just the abortion issue. Thankfully, the new America First slate supports, but also, some of the other issues. Just let's have debates. Let's have discussions. I mean, there's so many. We don't even hold debates. You would think our local Republican Party, just as a service to its voters during primary season, would hold mandatory debates and say, if you're running for General Assembly, you show up, and if you don't, then we're going to recommend people avoid you.
Isn't that fascinating, David? That I think that's such an important point you brought up, that there is a hesitancy to the point where it's almost outrageous to bring up the actual issues. To nail someone down on their position it seems to me, in my experience in the GOP in New Hanover County, is often considered untoward and subversive somehow. How do you think we got to the point where actually debating the issues within the party became almost a taboo?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a there's probably some places that where our Republican Party doesn't care who wins the primary, perhaps, uh, or are less concerned about who wins the primary in a given instance. But especially when you come to General Assembly, bigger offices, we saw this in the congressional race with how Max Beckwith got treated. Uh, uh, I guess when he ran against David Rouser in the primary, couldn't get a debate.
No debate.
Uh, but Will Connect will stand up there all night long and say, "What a great conservative David Rouser is," and like, yeah, the great conservative that's too chicken to debate the issues. So
Well, and that's the other thing is that what they've substituted for debate is sloganeering. And, I think, people are going to hear me pick on Will Connect a lot. And the reason is he bloody deserves it. And if he doesn't deserve it, and I can't make the case that he does, well, then people shouldn't listen to me. But if he does deserve it, people should totally be speaking up about it. And one of the great examples to me of what you're talking about is he was up and down all against woke indoctrination in the schools. But what was the big thing that he and the rest of the GOP leadership fought Melissa Mason on? Firing Faust. And Faust is the general leading that whole onslaught in the schools. You know, so I think it's such a good point, and it's something that people I think can pay attention to, is how people react to an opportunity to discuss the issues honestly.
yeah, I mean, I believe that's absolutely true. I believe there's everybody talks about the swamp up in D.C., and that's certainly true. But we have one right in Raleigh, and we probably have a local one too. And where the people who are really in charge, I like our Speaker Moore, or uh, or uh, or the Berger in the Senate. And, these people have their own agenda that they want to push through, and it's not so much about you know getting Republican laws and policies into place. It's about how can I continue to be reelected? How can I satisfy the big corporations and other special and important donor class people and business owners? How can I get them to continue to give money to the Republican Party? And how many favors and how much power can I personally get? As opposed to what I think our founders really wanted, which was citizen statement, just everyday people going in there for 2 or 4 days, 2 or 4 years, a short stint, and doing their service for the community and voting their conscience. And that's what really everybody really would like to see. But it's hard. But they don't want to vote their conscience. They want to run on slogans, and they want to. And then when the when the vote comes out, they have plausible deniability when it comes to. Well, I never said that.
Right. Or I did everything I could, but it's beyond my control. We're one vote short of the supermajority, and I think so. I guess the question is how long will they be able to get away with that? I think a lot of people are pretty disillusioned now.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can. The only way that we're going to get rid of it is get back to something that resembles um, what our founders, wanted out of our government is for the rank and file to just speak up, and this is a great opportunity here at the convention that we're urging every single Republican. Obviously, we're urging all the pro-life people to come, but anybody, even if your position is something different on abortion. I mean, there's plenty of other issues that they're not being conservative on at the General Assembly, like Medicaid expansion or a few other things they just passed. There's plenty of stuff that has to do with special interest. It doesn't have to do anything to do with principles, and there's plenty to fight about. But obviously, I think the most important thing, obviously, is the life of innocent children. So, but that's what we have to get. We have to get the grassroots organized in such a manner that where, guess what? We have to change the thing here. We can't just be, what is the Republican Party? It seems like most of these people that are winning and in office up at the General Assembly, I mean, the pitch seems to be is, well, I'm not really all that much different from a Democrat, but I'm better. I'm not quite so extreme.
Yeah, someone has said that the modern Republican establishment is Democrats doing the speed limit. And then they turn around and say to the Democrats, "Well, yes, we're Republicans, but we're not as bad as our grassroots."
I want people. I want people. I think you do too. But I want people to be proud to be a Republican, and first of all, and especially proud to be pro-life. I mean, and
Amen.
really pro-life, believing that life begins at conception, and unless there's some extraordinary circumstance where a mother might die, that abortion should be illegal
Yep.
in almost all circumstances, and just like murder would be in general. But now we're playing all these fuzzy talk games about you know how many weeks and all this other stuff, which doesn't matter at all. They're either a human life or they're not, and they are, and science tells us that they are, and we don't even need to turn to the good book in order to prove it. I mean, but we need to turn to the Lord for inspiration. But it's just so plainly obvious through natural revelation, and what we need is a group of people who are going to stand up now and be proud to be pro-life. Be proud to have a conversation with your neighbor. Don't be timid. Just you might get into it, but you if you conduct yourself properly, it doesn't have to turn into an all-out shouting match.
No, absolutely. I love what you bring out there too, and I keep coming back to issues that come up over and over again in this podcast. There's this thing of don't have shame about your own innate sense of right and wrong, that yours is as valuable. You hearken back to the founders and their idea of normal people, government for the people, of the people, for the people, by the people. I'm sure I'm getting the prepositions in the wrong order. That you don't have to be some sort of expert to see what's obvious, and that your voice counts as much as the other person's. And that's the reason you don't have to get upset. You can speak calmly and connect with your neighbor. But you said that so beautifully, from the scientific and from the spiritual side. Can I turn to something very dry and procedural now?
Sure.
Are you concerned about at the convention, about your resolution being derailed by any sort of parliamentary sleight of hand? We witnessed a good deal of this at last year's convention. And if so, do you have any plans on how to deal with that?
I'm hoping we can find some very good parliamentarians to work with me on the day, in case these sorts of things are not necessarily predictable on how they're going to do it.
David, I don't know if you've watched the show before. I always have my action items. Are we talking about an action item here? If you're a parliamentarian, get together with David Perry. Should I put that on the action items?
Yes, we need an expert parliamentarian to work with on the day of, because some crap is going to get pulled, and
I'm rubbing my magic lantern. Make it so, and then I'll insert a little action item there through the magic of editing. Yeah, no, you need someone there, definitely.
Yeah, that's not my strong suit. So we all have our strong suits. That's not mine. So I wish I was a better orator. I wish I was like Martin Luther King. I have a dream that babies will no longer be killed in North Carolina, but I don't have that kind of voice. But what I do have is the passion and some organizational skills, and you just give what you can.
Well, and your writing is really powerful too, and it's very lucid. And I'm going to put this in a Google Doc and attach it in the notes. And I have read through it as part of the broadcast already, but download a copy, share it with your friends. David's right. He's a little humble here. He's a very powerful writer and very clear and extraordinarily well-reasoned writer. So share this around.
Okay, yes, and absolutely do share it around. What we need is not just, not everybody's going to see your 18 podcast, and they may not see the ads.
What?
What we need is everybody who does to really get out there and tell your neighbors and your family and your friends, anybody who's a Republican, you know what, and tell them about this, because obviously we don't have $50,000 dollars to send out a mailer to every registered Republican urging them to come. So we need to do this by word of mouth. So
Absolutely. And if you think about it, in my opinion, we don't need more than 300 true conservatives to show up on the day of to win the day. I think that's the number. It's 300. I mean, now it's hard to get 300 people in a room, but it's not a lot of people. But absolutely, the main thing is not just to be happy about what's going on. You got to show up. You got to register online. It's $10 to register ahead of time. It's $20 to register at the door. If you don't have the money, there's people putting together funds to help people out. If you reach out to me and don't have the money, I could sponsor a few people.
Yeah, reach out to me too. If you need the $10. I mean, I'm sure everybody can come up with an excuse why they won't be able to be there.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a family obligation. We're going bowling. We always have dinner on Saturday family day. There's a zillion reasons not to show up, but there's 30,000 reasons every single year for you to show up. And those are the number of babies being killed in North Carolina every single year.
Absolutely, it's a shocking number, and it's in the resolution, which again I've read. But just to reiterate, that's the average number of lives lost to abortion in North Carolina yearly, 30,000 lives. But as you pointed out, this top-down promulgation of policies, basically, bottleneck between Phil Berger and Tim Moore, as you say. All of the policies that we have problems with as conservatives, we could start to undermine that just by having a county leadership that doesn't feel beholden to those central figures. And that's the true power of getting 300 people together, that we can say, hey, it's a federalist system, and good Lord, the parties don't have any legal power. We can have self-determination within our own county party.
And and we should. And I think that's there will be some pragmatists who will say that's going to come with a price. If Republicans in New Hanover County start acting on principle, start making censure motions against candidates who aren't completely pro-life, or if we don't elect the quote unquote right people, then we're going to lose elections. But I'm always of the consequence. There's always something of the opinion, rather, that to do the right thing and let the results be damned. Because if we do the right thing, I think our Lord will bless us. And I'm so tired of chicken politicians who are always sticking their finger up there in the air to determine which way the political winds are blowing, instead of saying, this is what I believe and here's why I believe it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think people probably are a little tired of hearing me bring it up, but I think we showed them. What's so interesting to me is the way the 2020 elections went on the large scale. But if you just narrow down and just look at the school board races, I think the results in the school board races in New Hanover County, but also nationwide, really looked more like what all the rest of the races should have looked like, because to me, the issues were so close to home and so clear, and the people who stood up and demanded principle and common sense were actually rewarded. So that the old rubric of put your finger in the air and don't get too specific was actually subverted. It's not a theory. We pulled it off. We swept the school board.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is I think if you look at that from a national level too, I think the people who did really, really well were the people who actually stood for something in their campaigns. I mean, you look down to Florida with DeSantis. I mean, I went to his website just to check it out. I mean, very specific conservative policies laid out in stone. This is what we're going to do, and he did. Not only did he beat a former Democratic governor of Florida in a landslide. I mean, he got his Florida legislature won overwhelmingly as well. I mean, it was, but that's because he was being specific. And I think there's this myth that somehow you've got to go to the center and just be blah. And so I think really what we need to do. I think most people would, even if they don't agree with you, would rather see somebody honest with an honest opinion and say, okay, I disagree with him on this and this, but there's a number of other things I do agree with him, and I appreciate the fact that he's this candidate here is actually standing up for what they believe in. I mean, you look at somebody like Rand Paul in the Senate. I mean, how many times has he, you know, uh, gone up against, Mitch McConnell and the other swamp creatures that up there in the U.S. Senate? I mean, he's always, bucking, um, you know, them and telling them, that they're wrong and standing up for what's right. And, what he's on his third Senate term already.
Yep. Well, yeah, and there's definitely rewards. I mean, you can find all sorts of examples of people who stand on principle, and get rewarded for it. It's like that line from the Gospel of Mark. You'll get 100-fold now in this time with persecutions. You do have to get some persecutions, but you can also win. And we were talking earlier about the value of a principled defeat. If you look at Katie Hobbs versus I'm spacing on the woman's name now, Carrie Lake. Okay, Carrie Lake lost, but do you see Katie Hobbs turning her win into a national office anytime soon?
No.
Whereas
So
whereas Carrie Lake's star, despite the loss, is still on the rise, I would say.
I would think so. I think that's the, um, but that's pure self ambition. I mean, obviously, the real reason you should to run on principle and govern on principle is because it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
I mean,
Let's not forget
uh,
that. I think it's important to point out to people that the people who are telling them that you have to run to the middle and you have to compromise and you have to not make too many people upset by saying the true thing are the people who have failed us election after election after election. It's just not working, you know.
no, it's not like working. I mean, that's why we didn't we didn't we lost the U.S. senator, and our win at the U.S. House was very small. So
Yep.
it's typically much bigger.
Well, and right here at home, we missed the opportunity to get a supermajority.
You know,
I mean that could have been from New Hanover.
one other thing I wanted to mention before we move on to another topic is that just as far as doing the right thing and being loud and being bold, you know, my name's David Perry, so obviously my first name is David. So when I read um, when I was growing up, I obviously read all the King David stories
Sure.
because he's the same name as me, and beloved of God, and everybody's heard of David and Goliath and everything else. But one of the more interesting stories is when in stories of courage actually was courage against King David when he wasn't perfect either. He sinned mightily in front of the Lord, and you probably maybe you remember the story with Bathsheba that he was committing adultery with her. Uh, who was married to Uriah the Hittite.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, he sent Uriah the Hittite into the front of the battle, where he was very, very likely to get killed because he wanted him out of the way and cover up his adultery. But and the Lord informed Nathan the prophet, to go in there and confront him on this. Now, this could have been death for Nathan. I mean, King could have just said, "I don't care what you think the Lord says. Off with your head." I mean, that's the kind of power King David had at the time. But no, he went in there with the conviction of the Lord and confronted him face to face in front of the whole assembly of people, from what I remember reading in my Bible story. So it's important to speak truth and to power, and we have to. That's just the right thing to do, and eventually it's also the smart thing to do, as we were discussing.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, David, because in the upcoming episodes, I'm going to be interviewing at least one person who did stand up and speak the truth and spoke truth to power, and was subjected to character assassination, and there was an attempt to sort of personally destroy her. And I'll also be talking about my own run-ins with the GOP and their attempt to assassinate my character and criminalize me in order to remove me from the process. And but that's what we're called to do. And how it shakes out is out of our hands.
Yeah, you wouldn't change a thing, would you?
No.
No. That's the kind of inner peace you can get when you know that you're doing the right thing, as opposed to doing the calculated thing or the politically correct thing.
It simplifies everything. It doesn't necessarily make the experience of it easier, but you don't have it. It certainly removes all the anxiety about what to do. You don't necessarily relish it, but
No, nobody relishes, uh, defeats and setbacks. But I believe our Lord is going to bless our efforts overall. There'll be a few setbacks along the way, I'm sure, just like in the early church. I mean, martyrs were had, persecutions were had. The church could have very easily gone under, but the spirit kept on working, and here we are today.
Jesus said it himself, right? The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Is there anything else you want to say about how people can help? We want them to show up on Saturday to the March for Life. We want them to.
Yes, please come. We could probably use some help down too. I'm not sure what the crowd. First of all, we need to have a big crowd. But second of all, and I don't know how much it's. I'm not the march's organizer. I don't know how what the attendance is supposed to be like. So, but the more you can spread the news that this is happening, the better. And we can get a big crowd down there. Maybe we can get some media attention, and so other people will hear about it who may not be there, and know what's going on, and say, yeah, these pro-life people, they're not a fractional minority. They're actually a substantial number of members of our community. And but second of all, if you can come down and help us with our efforts, we'll probably passing around copies of the resolution to people in the crowd, and maybe I'm not sure if they have tables to set up a booth, but we definitely want to distribute them and encourage people to come. So we'll need some help there if you can come down and help us. But either way, just get there. So.
You know what, David? I got a card table that's been out of action since November. It needs to get back in the game. I'll bring that down if you need a place to set up. But I got a card table with your name on it. As long as you brought it up, I'm going to share the organizer email there. It's Wilmington NC 4 Life. That's numeral 4. Wilmington NC 4 Life at gmail.com. Email them to ask any questions, how you might help out. Or what you can bring, stuff like that. Just real quick, any news on the pledge? Any successes getting people to sign up for that?
Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet, but you know what I think.
Will you bring a copy of that Saturday?
Yeah, I would definitely bring some copies of that Saturday as well. I think, and we're not getting away from the pledge. I think the pledge is very, very important. I think, I think as a precursor, I think this resolution it goes away. It goes because it really defines this is what we believe, and then we can get to the pledge, and then the pledge is stronger because the pledge is I won't vote for any buddy who's not for life beginning at conception and worthy of being protected, regardless of what party they're running on. That's a great pledge, but it's an even stronger pledge when we know, if we pass this resolution, that is right in line to what our party has actually voted for and approved.
Absolutely. I think the two pressure tools work better together and in that order. Well, David, I think we got through all of it. Unless there's anything else you wanted to touch on.
No, I just wish everybody a good week, and hopefully I'll see you on Saturday, and hopefully it won't rain either.
Hopefully it won't rain, but we will be there, rain or shine. Very good.
That's true.
Thanks a lot, David. I really appreciate it. God bless. And that was episode 5. Wow, what a great episode. A lot of stuff going on. As usual, we're going to finish up with your action items. Also, after your action items, I'm going to post a few memes that have been generated by this convention. Yes, the convention is generating memes, guys. Hang out for those. They're a little fun. They'll be after the action items. And then after that, I decided, just for time's sake, to include the reading of David Perry's resolution to the convention at the end of the video. Of course, the link to a doc will be in the description below, so you can read through it if you want to. If you want to hear it read, I will read it at the very end of the video, so you can skip that if you want to. Thanks for watching. And remember, the time for action is now. I almost forgot to say it. From One Voice for the Voiceless, a resolution on abortion to be presented at the New Hanover County Republican Party County Convention on March 21st, 2023. Whereas, the United States Declaration of Independence rightly declares that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Whereas, the United States Declaration of Independence rightly declares that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, it logically follows that our local, state, and federal governments have a primary responsibility to defend the unalienable rights of each and every human being within their jurisdiction. Whereas the exercise of other unalienable rights, such as liberty and the pursuit of happiness, are fully dependent on a human being remaining alive, it logically follows that the unalienable right to life of each and every innocent person is of paramount importance. Whereas it has been scientifically proven that a living human organism with distinct DNA from its parents is created at the moment of human conception, it logically follows that unborn children should be considered human beings that are endowed with an unalienable right to life from the moment of human conception. Whereas Article 4, Part 1 of the North Carolina Republican Party 2022 platform states clearly that we believe in the sanctity of all human life, Unborn children have constitutional rights to life and liberty, and the government must respect and protect all innocent human life from conception until natural death. Whereas the United States Supreme Court, in the case of Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, decided on June 24th, 2022 to overrule previous case law, Roe v. Wade, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, etc., and ruled that a woman does not have a constitutional right to an abortion. And furthermore, that the court ruled that each state had the independent authority to pass laws that legalize, restrict, or even abolish abortion within that state, whereas the current law in North Carolina permits legal abortion up until the 20th week of pregnancy. An annual average of over 30,000 abortions have been legally conducted within the state. Therefore, let it be resolved that the North Carolina General Assembly should immediately pass legislation that would abolish the practice of abortion within the state of North Carolina and protect human life from the moment of conception. Resolved that the governor of the state of North Carolina should sign such legislation so that it becomes law, and fully resolved to enforce this new law within the state. Resolved that given the political and ideological disposition of the current North Carolina General Assembly and of the governor, that it might prove impossible at the moment to pass a law protecting unborn life from the moment of conception, the new Hanover County Republican Party will work vigorously to elect candidates to the General Assembly and the governorship who are firmly and vocally committed to abolishing legalized abortion in all but the rarest of circumstances and protecting life from the moment of human conception. Resolved that in the interim, elected Republicans in the North Carolina General Assembly who are committed to protecting life from the moment of conception should support more restrictions on legal abortion, such as the heartbeat bill, that will significantly reduce the number of abortions that occur in North Carolina. Supporters of these types of measures should publicly acknowledge that these are interim measures and vow that they will continue to strive for legislation that will protect human life from the moment of conception. Resolved that while individual Republican elected officials and candidates are free to hold differing viewpoints that do not respect and protect the sanctity of life from the moment of conception, they do so with the express disapproval of the new Hanover County Republican Party and subject themselves to possible censure and/or other forms of disciplinary action.